There is something that wants to be said through you. Not by you, but through you. And this is perhaps the strangest and most beautiful secret that existence has been whispering since the first hydrogen atoms found each other in the primordial darkness and began their ancient conversation. You are not simply a biological accident wandering through an indifferent cosmos. You are not merely a consumer, a taxpayer, a demographic. You are a letter, a living, breathing, walking letter that nature has been composing for 14 billion years, and the envelope has only just been opened. Consider for a moment what it actually means to exist, not what you have been told it means by the exhausted institutions of a dying culture, but what it actually, phenomenologically, experientially means to find yourself here, now, reading these words, with a heart beating in your chest and galaxies wheeling overhead. You did not ask to be born. You did not fill out an application form. You did not negotiate the terms of your incarnation with some cosmic bureaucracy. You simply appeared. You emerged. Like a word emerges from silence. Like a wave emerges from the ocean. Like a thought emerges from the void of unconsciousness. You came into being. And the question that should haunt us, the question that should keep us up at night staring at the ceiling in wonder and terror, is why. Not why in the causal sense, not what mechanical sequence of events led to your particular configuration of atoms, but why in the teleological sense. What are you for? What message are you carrying? What is trying to be communicated through the unique and unrepeatable fact of your existence? Terence McKenna understood this. He understood that we are not accidents, but expressions, that the universe is not a dead machine grinding meaninglessly toward heat death, but a living language speaking itself into increasingly complex and beautiful forms. And you, with all your contradictions and confusions, your hopes and your heartbreaks, your moments of profound clarity, and your long nights of utter bewilderment, you are one of those forms. You are a syllable in a sentence that stretches back to the Big Bang and forward to something we cannot yet imagine. And the tragedy of modern existence is that most of us go through our entire lives without ever realizing that we are saying something, that our very being is an utterance, that our lives, properly understood, are not possessions to be hoarded or problems to be solved, but messages to be delivered. The universe, you see, has a communication problem. It is infinite, or at least so vast that the difference between infinite and merely incomprehensibly large is academic. It contains multitudes. It contains everything that has ever happened and everything that could ever happen, and perhaps even everything that could never happen. It is, in a very real sense, trying to know itself. But how does the infinite know itself? How does totality achieve self-awareness? It cannot step outside itself to get a good look, because there is no outside. It cannot compare itself to something else, because there is nothing else. The only way the infinite can know itself is by differentiating, by fragmenting, by becoming temporarily finite, by becoming you. This is not mystical poetry, though it sounds like it. This is a description of what actually happened. The universe became you. Not metaphorically, not symbolically, but literally. The same hydrogen that burned in the first stars is burning in your cells right now. The same patterns of organization that gave structure to the first galaxies are giving structure to your thoughts right now. You are not in the universe like a fish is in water or a bird is in air. You are of the universe. You are a temporary localization of universal process, a knot in the cosmic fabric, a point where infinity folds in on itself and opens its eyes and looks around and says, astonished, I am here. And in that looking around, in that astonishment, something is being communicated. Something is being transmitted. A message is being sent. But here is the terrible and wonderful thing. The message is not predetermined. The content of the letter is not already written. You are not simply reading a script that was finalized before your birth. You are composing the letter as you live it. Every choice you make, every thought you think, every relationship you enter and exit, every moment of courage and every moment of cowardice, every time you speak the truth and every time you swallow it, you are adding words to the message. You are writing the letter that the universe will read. And the universe is reading it. Not later, not after you die, not at some final judgment, but now, continuously. The reading and the writing are happening simultaneously, because time, as we experience it, is the process of composition. Time is the universe writing and reading itself through you. This reframes everything. This takes the entire project of human existence and turns it inside out. We spend so much of our lives trying to figure out what we should do, what career we should pursue, what relationships we should cultivate, what beliefs we should hold. We treat life as a puzzle to be solved, a maze to be navigated, a game to be won. But what if the question is not what should I do, but what am I saying? What if the evaluative criterion is not success or happiness, or even virtue in the conventional sense, but coherence, eloquence, beauty? What if the question the universe is asking, the question it has been asking since the first moment of creation, is not, are you happy, but are you legible? Can I read you? Does your life make sense as a sentence in the larger story I am trying to tell? McKenna talked about this in terms of what he called the logos. The logos is an old word, a Greek word, and it means something like word or reason, or the principle of intelligibility. In the beginning was the logos, says the Gospel of John, and the logos was with God, and the logos was God. But we do not need to get theological about it. The logos is simply the communicative dimension of reality. It is the fact that the universe is not just matter and energy, but also information. It is the fact that things mean something, not just to us, not just as projections of human consciousness onto an inherently meaningless substrate, but in themselves. The universe is meaningful. It is saying something, and we are part of what it is saying. The great tragedy of the modern world is that we have lost contact with the logos. We have been trained to believe that meaning is a human invention, a subjective overlay on an objective world that is, at bottom, meaningless. We have been taught that the universe is dead matter following blind laws, and that our sense of purpose and significance is a kind of pleasant delusion, an evolutionary adaptation that keeps us motivated to reproduce. And this teaching has consequences. It produces a particular kind of person, a person who feels, at some deep level, that their life does not matter, that their choices do not matter, that they are not participants in a cosmic conversation, but accidents in a cosmic silence. But this teaching is wrong. It is not just spiritually inadequate, but scientifically naive. The more we learn about the universe, the more we discover that it is not a machine, but an organism. Not a clock, but a conversation. The quantum level of reality, where the most fundamental processes occur, is irreducibly communicative. Particles do not simply exist in definite states waiting to be measured. They exist in superpositions of possibility, and the act of measurement, the act of looking, the act of reading, is what collapses those possibilities into actualities. Reality requires a reader. The message requires a recipient. And this is not some fringe interpretation of quantum mechanics. This is what the equations describe. The universe is participatory. It is dialogical. It is, in the deepest sense, linguistic. And if the universe is linguistic, then you are a word. You are a living word being spoken by the totality into the field of time and space. And like any word, your meaning is determined not just by your internal structure, but by your context, by what comes before and after, by the other words you are surrounded by the sentence you are part of. This is why relationships matter so much. This is why community matters. This is why culture matters. You are not an isolated individual pursuing private happiness. You are a word seeking its proper place in a sentence that is being composed collectively. And when you find that place, when you discover the other words you belong with, something clicks. Something becomes legible. The universe reads that sentence and understands something it did not understand before. This is what McKenna meant when he talked about the archaic revival. He was not advocating a naive return to some imagined golden age of primitive simplicity. He was pointing to the fact that our ancestors, for all their limitations, understood something we have forgotten. They understood that they were participants in a meaningful cosmos. They understood that their rituals and their stories and their songs were not just cultural artifacts, but cosmic communications. They understood that when they spoke, something was listening, and they shaped their lives accordingly. They tried to be eloquent. They tried to be beautiful. They tried to say something worth saying. We have lost this. We have traded eloquence for efficiency, beauty for productivity, meaning for information. We have become, in a very real sense, illegible. Our lives no longer cohere. Our choices do not add up to sentences. We are noise. We are static. We are letters jumbled together in no particular order, signifying nothing. And the universe, which is trying to read us, which has been trying to read us since the moment of our birth, cannot make sense of what we are saying. It squints at the page of our existence and sees only confusion. But here is the hope. Here is the possibility that remains open even in this late hour of cultural disintegration. The letter is not finished. The message is still being composed. You are still writing. And every moment, every single moment, offers the opportunity to add a word that makes sense, to contribute a phrase that clarifies what came before, to speak a syllable of truth that illuminates the whole. The universe is patient. It has been composing itself for 14 billion years. It is not in a hurry. It is waiting for you to become legible. It is waiting for you to realize that your life is a message. And then it is waiting for you to decide what that message will be. Now we must go deeper into what it means to be a message. Because there is a crucial distinction here, a distinction that most people miss, and missing it condemns them to a life of confusion and frustration. The distinction is between being a message and having a message. Modern culture is obsessed with having messages. We are told to develop our personal brand, to craft our narrative, to curate our image. We are trained to treat ourselves as products to be marketed, and our lives as campaigns to be managed. We construct messages about who we are, and we broadcast them through every available channel, hoping that someone, anyone, will receive them and respond. But this is not what we are talking about. This is the simulation of communication, not communication itself. This is noise dressed up as signal. This is the ego performing the role of meaning without actually meaning anything. Being a message is entirely different. Being a message is not something you do, but something you are. It is not a construction, but a revelation. It is not something you add to your existence, but something you uncover beneath all the additions. You do not have to become meaningful, because you already are meaningful. The universe did not make a mistake when it produced you. It was not having an off day. You are not cosmic junk, evolutionary debris, a failed experiment in consciousness. You are a precise and particular expression of universal intelligence, and the only question is whether you will become transparent to that expression, or whether you will spend your entire life obscuring it with borrowed identities and second-hand beliefs. This is what all the great spiritual traditions are pointing to, each in their own vocabulary. The Hindus talk about Atman, the innermost self that is identical with Brahman, the cosmic ground. The Buddhists talk about Buddha nature, the inherent enlightenment that every sentient being already possesses. The Christian mystics talk about the soul as a spark of divine fire, temporarily clothed in flesh, but eternally connected to its source. And McKenna, in his own strange and beautiful way, talked about the same thing. He talked about the self as a temporary wave in an eternal ocean. He talked about the ego as a necessary, but ultimately illusory contraction of a consciousness that is, in its true nature, boundless. He talked about the possibility of remembering what you actually are, beneath all the forgetting that culture has imposed. And what you actually are is a message that the universe is composing to itself. A message about what is possible. A message about what it feels like to be finite within infinity, to be mortal within eternity, to be confused within omniscience. Because here is the thing that most spiritual teachers neglect to mention. The universe does not already know what it is like to be you. You are not redundant. You are not simply repeating information that already exists elsewhere. Your particular perspective, your particular way of experiencing existence, your particular configuration of insight and ignorance, wisdom and folly, courage and fear, has never existed before and will never exist again. You are novel. You are news. You are, in the most literal sense, original. This is what McKenna called novelty. He developed an entire theory around it, the time wave zero theory, which was perhaps more poetry than physics, but which pointed to something genuinely profound. The universe is not running down. It is not winding toward equilibrium and stasis. It is ramping up. It is producing more and more novelty, more and more complexity, more and more unprecedented configurations of matter and energy and consciousness. And you are part of that process. You are one of the ways the universe is surprising itself. Your very existence is an innovation. And innovations carry information. They say something that could not be said before. But what specifically are you saying? This is where it gets interesting and also terrifying. Because you do not know. You cannot fully know. A message does not know its own content. A word does not understand the sentence it is part of. You experience your life from the inside as a series of moments unfolding in time, but you cannot step outside that series and see it as a whole. You cannot read yourself the way the universe reads you. And this is as it should be. This is the nature of being a participant in a conversation rather than an observer of one. The conversation is happening through you, not to you. You are speaking, not listening. And the one who speaks cannot simultaneously be the one who hears. This is why we need each other. This is why solipsism is not just philosophically untenable, but spiritually catastrophic. Other people are not obstacles to your self-realization or competitors for scarce resources of meaning. Other people are the readers of your message. They are the ones who can hear what you are saying in a way that you cannot hear yourself. When someone truly sees you, when someone understands something about you that you did not understand about yourself, they are reading a sentence that the universe wrote through you. They are completing a circuit that could not be completed otherwise. And in that moment of being read, something miraculous happens. You become real in a way you were not real before. Your message is received. Your life makes sense. This is what love actually is. Not the sentimental feeling, not the biological drive, not the social institution, but the ontological event. Love is the moment when one message recognizes another. It is the moment when the universe, fragmented into billions of separate perspectives, partially overcomes that fragmentation and glimpses its own unity. When you love someone, you are reading them. You are taking in their message and letting it change you. And when someone loves you, they are reading you. They are receiving what you are saying and responding to it. And in that exchange, that mutual reading and being read, something is communicated that could not be communicated any other way. Something that neither party could have accessed alone. A meaning that emerges from the space between you. McKenna understood this, though he did not always put it in these terms. He talked about the importance of relationship, of community, of what he called the felt presence of direct experience. He was suspicious of abstractions and ideologies precisely because they short-circuit this process of mutual reading. When you relate to another person through a theory, through a political position, through a religious doctrine, you are not reading them. You are projecting onto them. You are seeing the theory instead of the person, and they are doing the same to you. And what gets lost is the message. What gets lost is the actual communication that the universe is trying to accomplish through your encounter. This is the crisis of our time. We have developed technologies of communication so powerful that we can send information around the globe in milliseconds, but we have forgotten how to actually communicate. We talk at each other rather than with each other. We broadcast rather than converse. We perform rather than reveal. And as a result, despite being more connected than any humans in history, we are lonelier than ever. We are surrounded by messages that no one is reading. We are speaking into a void that sends back only echoes of our own voices. And slowly, imperceptibly, we begin to wonder whether we are saying anything at all, whether our lives have any meaning, whether we are messages or just noise. The way out of this is not more communication, but deeper communication. It is not more messages, but clearer messages. It is the willingness to be read and the patience to read. It is the courage to strip away all the performative layers, all the curated images, all the defensive postures, and to show what is actually there. To say what you actually mean. To live in a way that coheres. This is what authenticity actually means. Not self-expression in the narcissistic sense, not doing whatever you feel like, but coherence, alignment, integrity, being one thing all the way through so that the universe can read you without confusion. And here is the paradox. The more authentic you become, the less you feel like an individual. This seems counterintuitive. We expect that discovering our true self would make us feel more separate, more distinct, more uniquely ourselves. But the opposite happens. The more you strip away the false selves, the borrowed identities, the culturally imposed personas, the more you discover that what remains is not particular, but universal. The deepest part of you is the part that is most continuous with everything else. The message you are carrying is not about your separateness, but about your connection. You are a word in a sentence about unity. This is what the mystics mean when they talk about dying before you die. They do not mean physical death, and they do not mean psychological destruction. They mean the death of the illusion of separation, the death of the belief that you are a standalone entity pursuing private goals in a universe that does not care. That belief is false. It was always false. And when it dies, what emerges is not annihilation, but revelation. You discover that you were never alone because you were never really separate. You discover that your life has always been meaningful because it has always been part of a meaning that transcends it. You discover that you are a message, and the message is being received, and the receiver is the same one who sent it. The universe is reading itself through you. Let that sink in. The totality of existence, with its billions of galaxies and its infinite depths of space and time, is achieving self-knowledge through your particular perspective. It is learning something about itself that it could not learn any other way. And what it learns depends on how you live. If you live unconsciously, repeating patterns handed to you by culture and biology, the universe learns nothing new. You become a cliché, a stock phrase, a word that has been used so many times it has lost all meaning. But if you live consciously, if you pay attention, if you make choices rather than simply reacting, you become poetry. You become an original utterance. You say something that has never been said. This is the responsibility that comes with being a message. You do not get to opt out. You do not get to decide not to mean anything. Your life is going to say something whether you intend it to or not. The only question is whether it will say something worth saying, whether it will add to the clarity or the confusion, whether it will illuminate or obscure. And this question is asked not once, but in every moment. Every moment is an opportunity to speak or to mumble. Every moment is a chance to compose or to ramble. The message is being written continuously, and you are the author, and the universe is the reader, and the stakes could not be higher. We have been circling around something crucial, and now it is time to approach it directly. What does it mean for the universe to read you? This is not merely a poetic conceit, not just a pretty metaphor to make you feel significant. Something is actually happening. Something is actually being received. And if we are going to take seriously the idea that your life is a message, we need to understand the nature of the recipient. The universe, as McKenna understood it, is not a passive backdrop against which the drama of life unfolds. It is not a container holding its contents indifferently. The universe is aware. Not aware in the way you are aware, with a localized perspective and a limited bandwidth of attention. Aware in a way that includes and transcends all localized perspectives. Aware the way an ocean might be aware of all the waves that rise and fall on its surface. The waves are distinct. They have their own shapes and movements, but they are not separate from the ocean. They are expressions of the ocean. They are the ocean waving, and the ocean knows them because the ocean is them. This is what panpsychism points to, this ancient and increasingly fashionable philosophical position that consciousness is not an anomaly, but a fundamental feature of reality. Not that rocks and electrons are conscious in the way humans are conscious, but that the interior dimension, the felt quality of experience, the something that it is like to be, goes all the way down and all the way up. Consciousness is not produced by matter. Consciousness and matter are two aspects of the same underlying reality, which is neither purely physical nor purely mental, but something prior to that distinction. And this underlying reality, call it the Logos, call it mind, call it God, call it whatever you want, this underlying reality is capable of receiving information about itself because it is inherently self-reflexive. It folds back on itself. It knows. When McKenna took psychedelics, this is what he encountered. Not hallucinations in the dismissive sense, not random firings of neurons producing meaningless light shows, but contact, communication, a felt sense of being in the presence of something that was paying attention. He called it various things at various times: the Logos, the Overmind, the Mushroom, the self-transforming machine elves. These names are less important than what they point to, which is the experience of being read, of being perceived by something that understands, of having your message received by a recipient capable of comprehending it. And this is not limited to psychedelic experiences, though psychedelics can make it dramatically apparent. It is happening all the time. It is happening right now. You are being read right now, not by some old man sitting on a cloud, not by some cosmic bureaucrat keeping score, but by the universe itself, by the totality of which you are a part, by the ocean of which you are a wave. And the reading is not an evaluation in the judgmental sense. The universe is not grading you. It is not deciding whether you pass or fail. The reading is an act of incorporation, an act of integration. The universe is taking your message into itself and using it to understand what it is and what is possible. This changes the meaning of everything you do. Every action, no matter how small, is a transmission. Every thought, no matter how fleeting, is a broadcast. You cannot do anything that is truly private because there is no privacy in a universe that is one. Your secret shames and your unwitnessed triumphs, your midnight anxieties and your dawn epiphanies, all of it is being received. All of it is contributing to the message that your life is composing. And this is not a cause for paranoia, but for responsibility, for care, for attention. If everything you do matters, if everything you do is being incorporated into the self-knowledge of the totality, then carelessness becomes a kind of cosmic vandalism, and thoughtfulness becomes a kind of prayer. This is what the traditions mean when they talk about mindfulness, though the word has been so diluted by corporate wellness programs and smartphone apps that it has nearly lost its power. Mindfulness is not stress reduction. It is not productivity enhancement. It is not a technique for performing better in the capitalist hellscape. Mindfulness is the practice of remembering that you are being read. It is the continuous return to awareness of the significance of your existence. It is the refusal to sleepwalk through your life, mumbling incoherently, wasting the precious opportunity that incarnation represents. Every moment you are mindful is a moment the message becomes clearer. Every moment you are mindless is a moment of static, of noise, of lost signal. And here we must talk about suffering, because any honest account of human existence must grapple with the fact of suffering, and any claim that your life is meaningful must explain how suffering fits into that meaning. This is the problem that has troubled every philosophy and every religion. If the universe is intelligent and aware, why does it permit such pain? If you are a message that the cosmos is trying to read, why does so much of that message consist of screaming? McKenna did not have an easy answer to this, and neither does anyone else who has thought seriously about it. But he had a perspective that is worth considering. He saw suffering not as a mistake or an aberration, but as information. Crucial information. Information that the universe needs in order to understand itself fully. Because a universe that only knew pleasure, that only contained joy, would be radically incomplete. It would be a universe that had never experienced the dark. And experience is knowledge. If the cosmos is trying to know itself through us, it must know all of itself, including the terrible parts, including the parts that hurt. This does not mean that suffering is good or that we should not try to reduce it. It means that suffering is meaningful. It means that when you suffer, you are not falling out of the cosmic conversation, but going deeper into it. You are adding words to the message that could not be added any other way. You are teaching the universe something about finitude, about limitation, about what it feels like to break. And this teaching matters. It contributes. It is received. There is a strange consolation in this. Not a cure for pain, not a bypass around grief, but a context. A frame that makes suffering bearable because it makes it significant. The worst thing about suffering in a meaningless universe would be its pointlessness. The agony on top of agony, the pain on top of pain, would be the knowledge that it was all for nothing. That you were hurting and no one was listening, and it would leave no trace. But in a universe that reads you, suffering leaves a trace. It is incorporated into the record. It becomes part of what the cosmos knows about itself. And in some way that we cannot fully understand from our limited perspective, it is redeemed. Not erased, not undone, but woven into a larger pattern that we cannot see from here. This is what faith actually means. Not belief in unlikely propositions, not commitment to ancient creeds, but trust. Trust that the universe is paying attention. Trust that your life matters. Trust that even the parts that make no sense to you, that seem like pure noise, are being read by something that can discern their meaning. Faith is the willingness to keep composing your message, even when you cannot see who is receiving it. It is the commitment to clarity and coherence, even in the dark. It is the persistence of meaning-making in the face of apparent meaninglessness. And this brings us to death. The elephant in every room. The fact that none of us want to face, but all of us must. If your life is a message, what happens when the message ends? What happens when the letter is finished, the envelope sealed, the stamp affixed? Where does the message go when you are no longer here to carry it? McKenna was surprisingly sanguine about death, at least in his public teachings. He spoke of it as a return, a rejoining, a dissolution of the temporary back into the eternal. He compared it to a drop of water falling into the ocean, which sounds like annihilation, but is actually completion. The drop does not cease to exist. It becomes something larger than it was. It becomes what it always was, in a way that it could not fully be while maintaining its dropness. And the information contained in the drop, the unique shape and trajectory of its existence, is not lost. It is integrated. It becomes part of the ocean's knowledge of itself. We cannot know this for certain. We cannot know anything about death for certain, because no one comes back to file a report. But we can consider what is consistent with the rest of what we have been saying. If the universe is a communicative system, if it is organized around the transmission and reception of information, then it would be very strange for information to simply disappear. It would violate everything we know about how systems work. Information transforms, but does not vanish. It changes form, but maintains its essential content. And you, as a message, are information. Your life is information. And there is no reason to believe that information ceases to be when the temporary vessel that carried it is no longer capable of carrying it. This is not a guarantee of personal survival in the conventional sense. McKenna was careful to distinguish between the self that he called the monkey mind, the chattering ego that fears its own extinction, and the deeper self that is continuous with the logos. The monkey mind may very well end at death. The story you tell yourself about who you are, the narrative identity that you have been constructing since childhood, that may dissolve. But the message remains. The contribution you made to the cosmic conversation remains. The universe is permanently different because you existed, and that difference cannot be undone. You have been read. You have been received. You are part of the record. And that record is eternal, because the cosmos is eternal, and the record is what the cosmos is. So we arrive at the question that every awakened being must eventually face. If your life is a message, what do you want it to say? This is not the same as asking what you want to do with your life, which is the question culture trains us to ask. What you want to do is about activity, about external accomplishment, about leaving marks on the world that others can see and evaluate. What you want to say is about meaning, about communication, about the quality of consciousness with which you move through existence. You can do great things and say nothing. You can accomplish vast achievements and remain utterly illegible. And you can do very little by the world's standards and yet speak volumes. The monk in his cell, the mother with her children, the artist in obscurity, the gardener tending her plot of earth. These lives may say more than the conqueror and the billionaire, because what matters is not the size of the megaphone, but the clarity of the utterance. McKenna talked about this in terms of what he called the felt presence of immediate experience. He was deeply suspicious of anything that distracted from this felt presence, anything that pulled attention away from the actual moment and toward abstractions, representations, secondary descriptions. Culture, he argued, is largely a machine for generating such distractions. It gives us goals to pursue, identities to adopt, dramas to participate in, all of which take us away from the raw fact of being here now. And when we are taken away from that raw fact, our message becomes garbled. We start speaking someone else's words. We start living someone else's life. We become plagiarists of our own existence, copying texts that were never ours to copy. The antidote to this is attention, presence, the willingness to experience your life rather than merely think about it. And this is harder than it sounds because thinking is our default mode. We have been trained since birth to mediate our experience through concepts, to label and categorize and judge everything that passes through our awareness. We see a tree and immediately think tree, and that concept stands between us and the actual living presence of the vegetable being before us. We meet a person and immediately slot them into categories, friend or stranger, attractive or not, useful or irrelevant, and those categories stand between us and the actual mysterious presence of another consciousness encountering our own. We experience an emotion and immediately begin to narrate it, telling ourselves what it means and whether it is appropriate and what we should do about it. And that narration stands between us and the raw energy moving through our system. But the message you are carrying is not about concepts. It is not about categories. It is not about the narratives you overlay on your experience. The message is the experience itself. The message is what it actually feels like to be you, right now, in this moment, with all the ambiguity and intensity and uncertainty that entails. And the only way to convey that message clearly is to actually feel it, to be present to it, to let it be what it is, without immediately translating it into something safer and more manageable. This is what meditation is for. This is what all contemplative practices are for. Not to make you calm, though calm may result. Not to make you happy, though happiness may follow. But to return you to the direct experience of being alive. To strip away the mediating layers. To let you become, for a moment, fully present to the message you are carrying. And in that presence, something changes. The message becomes clearer. The signal strengthens. The universe, which is always reading you, can suddenly make out words where before there was only murmur. McKenna, of course, advocated for more dramatic methods of achieving this clarity. The psychedelic experience, he argued, was like a fire hose of presence blasted into a consciousness accustomed to sipping from a garden hose. It overwhelmed the narrating mind, short-circuited the categorizing impulse, and forced the experiencer into direct contact with the raw data of existence. And in that contact, truths were revealed that could not be accessed any other way. The message became not just clear, but luminous. The universe read you, and you could feel it reading. The conversation became explicit rather than implicit. But psychedelics are not the only way, and they are not for everyone, and McKenna himself was careful to note their dangers and limitations. The point is not the method, but the goal. The goal is presence. The goal is clarity. The goal is becoming a message that can be read. And any practice that serves this goal is a valid practice. Meditation, prayer, art, love, even ordinary work performed with full attention, all of these can clear the channel. All of these can strengthen the signal. All of these can help you become what you already are, which is a communication from the infinite to itself. And here we encounter a crucial insight. The message you are carrying is not primarily about content, but about quality. It is not primarily about what you experience, but about how deeply you experience it. A life of great adventure and achievement can say less than a life of simple presence. A life filled with extraordinary events can be less legible than a life in which ordinary events are experienced with extraordinary attention. Because what the universe is reading is not the plot of your life, but the consciousness of your life. Not what happens to you, but how you meet what happens. Not your circumstances, but your awareness of your circumstances. This is liberating. It means that you do not need special conditions to become a clear message. You do not need to be rich or famous or successful. You do not need to have peak experiences or mystical revelations. You do not need to travel to exotic places or meet extraordinary people. You need only to be where you are, fully, to meet your actual life, whatever it contains, with actual attention. To stop wishing you were somewhere else, someone else, someone else, and to consent to the reality of your existence. This consent is the beginning of clarity. This acceptance is the first step toward legibility. And this is not passivity. This is not resignation. This is not giving up on the possibility of change or growth or transformation. It is, paradoxically, the precondition for genuine change. Because you cannot change what you are unwilling to see. You cannot transform what you are unwilling to experience. The parts of yourself you reject and suppress and deny become static in the message. They become garbled, encrypted, unreadable. It is only by including everything, by bringing full attention to even the parts you hate, that the message can cohere. It is only by accepting the whole of your existence that you can become a whole communication. McKenna talked about this in terms of what he called shadow work, borrowing the concept from Jung. The shadow is everything about yourself that you have rejected, denied, projected onto others. It is the repository of your shame and your fear. It is the basement of the psyche where you have shoved everything that does not fit the self-image you are trying to maintain. And as long as that basement remains locked, as long as you refuse to open the door and see what is down there, your message will be incomplete. You will be communicating a lie. Not a deliberate lie, not a conscious deception, but a lie nonetheless. The lie of a self that is only partly present to itself. The work of becoming legible is therefore the work of integration, of bringing the shadows into the light, of reclaiming the rejected parts and finding their place in the whole. This is not easy work. It is not pleasant work. It requires a willingness to feel things you have spent your whole life trying not to feel. It requires a courage that culture does not teach and may in fact actively discourage. But it is the only way to become what you are capable of becoming. It is the only way for the message to achieve its full clarity. And when you do this work, something remarkable happens. The energy that was tied up in maintaining the repression, in keeping the basement door locked, is released. You find yourself more alive, more present, more capable of attention. The signal strengthens, the message clarifies, and the universe, which has been waiting patiently for you to become readable, begins to respond. Opportunities appear, connections form, synchronicities multiply. It is as if the cosmos, finally able to make out what you are saying, begins to answer. This is what McKenna called the felt presence of direct experience meeting the larger mind. This is what he meant when he talked about the dialogue with the Logos. It is not a one-way transmission. You are not shouting into the void. You are participating in a conversation. And when your part of the conversation becomes clear, the other side can respond. The universe is not silent. It has been speaking all along. But you could not hear it because you were not listening. You were too busy narrating, too busy categorizing, too busy maintaining the lie of a self that was only partly real. When that noise subsides, when the static clears, the voice of the Logos becomes audible. And what it says is always, 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 yes, yes. The universe says yes to you. Not yes to everything you want. Not yes to every ego gratification. Not yes in the sense of a cosmic Santa Claus fulfilling wishes, but yes in the deeper sense. Yes to your existence. Yes to your presence. Yes to the fact that you are here, that you are trying, that you are composing your message in the face of all the confusion and difficulty and suffering that existence entails. The universe does not condemn you. It does not judge you in the moralistic sense. It reads you. It receives you. It incorporates you. And that incorporation is a form of affirmation so profound that it makes all other forms of approval seem trivial. We spend our lives seeking this yes from the wrong sources. We seek it from parents who cannot give it because they never received it themselves. We seek it from lovers who cannot give it because they are seeking it from us. We seek it from institutions, from achievements, from accumulations of wealth and power and status. And none of these can satisfy because none of these are the source. The yes we are seeking is the yes of the cosmos, the yes of being recognized by the totality, the yes that comes when the message is received and understood and welcomed. And this yes is available. It has always been available. We simply did not know where to look. McKenna pointed toward this with his characteristic blend of poetry and provocation. He talked about the universe as a lover, not a patriarch, not a judge, not a cosmic enforcement agency, but a lover who wants you, who desires your full presence, who is wooing you toward greater and greater revelation. This is a shocking reframe for those raised in religious traditions that emphasize guilt and punishment. And it is an equally shocking reframe for those raised in scientific traditions that emphasize mechanism and meaninglessness. The universe desires you. It wants to know you. It is reaching toward you even as you are reaching toward it. And the name for that mutual reaching across the chasm of apparent separation is love. But this love, like all real love, makes demands. It does not leave you as it finds you. It transforms. It asks for more than you thought you could give. It pulls you beyond your comfort zone and into territories of experience that terrify the ego. Because the ego wants to be safe. The ego wants to be in control. The ego wants to know what is going to happen and to manage the outcomes. And love, cosmic love, refuses to be managed. It is wild. It is dangerous. It burns away everything false, and what remains is often barely recognizable to the one who was burned. This is why awakening is so difficult. This is why transformation so often feels like destruction. The message you have been carrying, the garbled, cluttered, static-filled message of your conditioned self, must be cleared before a cleaner message can emerge. And that clearing feels like death. Because in a very real sense, it is death. The death of who you thought you were. The death of the stories you told yourself. The death of the comfortable illusions that cushioned you from the raw fact of existence. And only through that death can the new life emerge. Only through that clearing can the true message become audible. McKenna talked about psychedelics as a technology for inducing this clearing. The ego death that experienced users report is not a metaphor. Something really does die. And in the space left behind, in the silence where all the chatter used to be, the Logos speaks. The universe communicates. The message that was always there, beneath all the noise, finally becomes perceptible. And the person who emerges from that experience is not the same person who entered. They have been read. They have been transformed by the reading. They are clearer now, simpler, more luminous. But psychedelics are not the only way to die before you die. Every genuine crisis offers the same opportunity. Every heartbreak, every failure, every encounter with the impermanence of things. The death of a loved one, the collapse of a career, the ending of a relationship, the diagnosis that changes everything. These experiences shatter the comfortable stories. They break open the ego's defenses. And in that brokenness, if we do not run from it, if we do not immediately begin reconstructing our walls, grace enters. The clearing happens. the static subsides. This is why suffering, approached correctly, can be such a powerful teacher. Not because it is good, not because we should seek it, but because it strips away what does not matter. It burns off the dross. It reveals, by destroying everything else, what is actually essential. And what is essential is always the same thing. Presence, awareness, the capacity to say yes to what is, even when what is breaks your heart. The willingness to remain a clear message, even when the message contains pain. And here, we must speak about courage. Because becoming legible requires courage. It requires the willingness to be seen, to be known, to be read. And being read means being vulnerable. It means exposing your message to a universe that might not respond the way you hope. It means giving up control over how you are received. This is terrifying to the ego, which wants to manage its image, to curate its reception, to ensure that it is seen only in the most flattering light. But a curated message is not a true message. A managed image is not a genuine communication. To be legible, you must be willing to be seen as you are, not as you wish you were, not as you hope to be, but as you actually are, right now, with all your contradictions and confusions intact. This vulnerability is strength. This is one of the great paradoxes. We think of vulnerability as weakness, as exposure to harm. And in the world of power and domination, it is. But in the world of communication, in the world of meaning, vulnerability is the precondition for truth. You cannot say something true if you are not willing to be seen saying it. You cannot send a message if you are not willing to be known as the sender. And the universe, which wants to read you, which desires to know you, is waiting for you to drop your defenses and let yourself be seen. McKenna embodied this in his public life. He was willing to say outrageous things, to propose ideas that made him look foolish to the mainstream, to risk his reputation and his credibility in service of the message he felt called to deliver. He was not always right. He was probably often wrong. But he was always sincere. He was always willing to be seen. And that willingness made him legible. It made his message clear. And that clarity drew people to him, not because they agreed with everything he said, but because they could sense that he was actually saying something. In a world of managed images and curated personas, he was a genuine utterance. He was a word that meant what it sounded like. You are called to the same authenticity, not to be McKenna, not to say what he said, but to find your own message and deliver it with the same courage, to stop managing your image, to stop curating your persona, to stop trying to control how you are received, and to simply be what you are, fully, without apology, without defense, letting the universe read you and trusting that the reading will be kind. Because the universe is kind. Not kind in the sentimental sense, not kind in the way that shields you from difficulty, but kind in the way that wants you to become what you are capable of becoming. And you cannot become that while you are hiding. This is what McKenna meant when he talked about the archaic revival as a personal rather than a cultural project. He was not waiting for society to transform. He was not hoping that the right politician would be elected or the right technology would be invented. He was calling individuals, one by one, to take responsibility for their own awakening, to become legible regardless of whether anyone else did, to clear their own channel, strengthen their own signal, compose their own message with maximum clarity and courage. And if enough individuals did this, culture would transform. Not from the top down, but from the inside out. Not through programs and policies, but through the accumulated weight of millions of clear messages finally being heard. And so we arrive at the end, which is also a beginning, because the message you are composing has no end. It continues beyond this moment, beyond this life, into dimensions of existence that we cannot see from here. The universe that is reading you is not constrained by time as you experience it. It reads the whole of you at once, beginning and middle and end, all present together in the eternal now that is its native mode. And in that reading, your life coheres. The parts that seemed random reveal their pattern. The moments that seemed meaningless disclose their significance. Everything fits, everything contributes. Even the mistakes, even the failures, even the long nights of confusion and despair, all of it is integrated into a message that makes sense. This does not mean that everything happens for a reason in the cheap sense, as if some cosmic script required your suffering or your errors. It means that meaning is always available. It means that coherence can always be found. It means that you, as the author of your message, have the power to weave even the most broken threads into a pattern that holds. And the universe will read that pattern. The universe will receive that weaving. The universe will say yes to whatever you compose, not because it agrees with every word, but because it welcomes every genuine utterance into its infinite embrace. McKenna died in the year 2000, and with his death, the particular message he was carrying achieved its final form. The envelope was sealed, the letter was complete, and since then, that letter has been read by millions. It has changed lives. It has opened minds. It has contributed something to the conversation that could not be contributed any other way. And McKenna, wherever he is now, whatever form his consciousness has taken, is part of the reading as well as part of the message. He has rejoined the Logos that spoke through him. He has returned to the ocean that waved him into existence. He is no longer the drop, but the water itself. And you will follow. Sooner or later, in one way or another, you will follow. Your letter will be complete. Your message will achieve its final form. And then you will be read, wholly and completely, by the cosmos that has been waiting for you since before you were born. And you will discover that you are not the author, but the authored. That you are not the sender, but the sent. That your whole life was the universe speaking to itself. And you were never alone because you were never separate from the speaker. But until that moment, you are still composing. Every breath is a word. Every heartbeat is a syllable. Every choice, every attention, every moment of presence or absence adds to the message that is your life. And the question remains, what do you want to say? What message do you want the universe to read when it looks at the page of your existence? What communication do you want to make with this precious opportunity of incarnation? McKenna would tell you to say something beautiful, to say something true, to say something that has never been said before. He would tell you to stop rehearsing other people's lines and to find your own voice. He would tell you to stop playing it safe and to take the risk of genuine utterance. Because the universe does not need more cliches. It does not need more borrowed words. It needs you. Your particular perspective, your unique experience, your novel contribution to the endless conversation. And the way to find that contribution is not to think harder, but to pay attention deeper. Not to figure out what you should say, but to notice what you are already saying. Because you are already speaking. Your life is already a message. The only question is whether you are speaking consciously or unconsciously, deliberately or by accident. Whether the words you are adding to the cosmic text are chosen or merely inherited. Whether you are an author or a plagiarist. Wake up. This is McKenna's fundamental message. Beneath all the intellectual elaboration and the psychedelic advocacy and the prophetic speculation. Wake up. Stop sleepwalking through your life. Stop dreaming while pretending to be awake. Become conscious of what you are doing, because what you are doing matters. You are composing a message that the universe will read for eternity. Make it good. And making it good does not mean making it impressive. It does not mean making it important by the world's standards. It means making it true, authentic, coherent. It means aligning your inner life with your outer life so that they speak with one voice. It means doing the shadow work, facing the dragons, integrating the rejected parts. It means showing up to your own existence as if it mattered, because it does. Not to some external judge, but to the totality that is reading you right now. The universe is reading you right now. In this moment, as you take in these words, as you feel whatever you are feeling, as thoughts arise and pass away in the space of your awareness, you are being read. The message is being received, and the universe is responding, though you may not see the response, though the response may come in forms you do not recognize. The conversation is ongoing. It has never stopped. It will never stop as long as there is a universe, and as long as there is a you to participate in it. So participate. Consciously, deliberately, courageously. Say what you have to say. Live the message that only you can live. Be the word that only you can be. The universe has been composing you for 14 billion years. It did not make a mistake. You are here for a reason, even if that reason cannot be articulated in the language of the ego. You are a letter that nature wrote to itself, and nature is reading you with love and attention and infinite patience. Do not crumple the letter in shame. Do not cross out the words in self-rejection. Let the letter be delivered. Let the message be received. Your life is a message the universe is trying to read. Make yourself legible. That is the whole of the teaching. That is everything that matters. Make yourself legible, and trust that the reading will be kind.